Welcome to Revenue Growth Live with Darrell Amy. You're about to join an interactive forum where business executives, sales professionals, and marketing leaders share ideas to accelerate growth. While you are here, make sure to like or subscribe to get notifications for future episodes. You're encouraged to get involved in today's live conversation by liking and commenting. Now, let's join Darrell Amy for fresh ideas and innovative strategies to help you grow your business faster.
Hello and welcome back to Revenue Growth Live. Darrell Amy here, growth architect, helping generous companies grow so they can give. And I'm excited that you're here today. If you're joining us for the first time, Revenue Growth Live is a place where we discuss strategies, tactics, and ideas that you can use to accelerate the growth of your company. Our mission is all about helping great companies grow revenue so they can create amazing jobs and have an impact in the community. So whether you own a business, if you're in sales, if you're in marketing, you're in the right place. And I'm glad you're here today. And today we're going to talk about some exciting news coming out of Dreamforce, Salesforce's annual conference, where they announced the acquisition of one of my favorite platforms, Slack. And I have some ideas in terms of what that can mean to all of us in the sales and marketing space to help drive revenue growth. But as we begin today, just a huge shout out to my friend, Darrell Prail. Darrell is the Chief Revenue Officer at VanillaSoft. They've got a fantastic company, and Darrell is he's got a great name, of course. He's Canadian, another thing in his favor. And I got to talk to Darrell on the Revenue Growth podcast this week about the role of the Chief Revenue Officer. And it was a fascinating conversation. Darrell added a lot of value. And, you know, it's interesting when you look at the role of Chief Revenue Officer in 2018, about 19% of Fortune 1000 companies had a Chief Revenue Officer responsible for revenue, sales, and marketing, technology, all of that. In 2019, that went from 18% to 31%. I'm looking forward to seeing what the stat is for 2020. But the bottom line is companies are realizing the importance of not looking at sales, not looking at marketing, but looking at the end result, which is revenue. So a huge shout out to Darrell and the team at VanillaSoft. They're doing a fantastic job. You should go check them out. That episode was very, very interesting. Also, just want to give a heads up to everybody as well about exciting opportunity that we have coming up next week. It's going to be next Wednesday. I am going to be releasing a web class on a topic that I get a ton of questions about. And that is, Darrell, how do we set goals right now? It's December. We're all putting together our plans for 2021. Historically, I think most companies have used what I like to call the ruler method, right? We looked and we said, okay, hey, look, we've done this level of growth for the last couple of years, and we set our growth goals based on the trend. And as I like to say right now, the trend is not your friend. It's just not. Most companies have had revenue challenges. Revenues dropped during 2020, or for a handful of companies, revenue has skyrocketed. Neither one of those trends is good. Well, skyrocket might be better than dropped, but it's not realistic going forward. So how in the world, whether you dropped in 2020 and you've got to recover in 2021, or whether you were selling face masks and personal protective equipment and your revenue skyrocketed, how do you figure out what your goal should be for 2021? That's exactly what we're going to talk about in the class, in that web class, how to set growth goals in an uncertain market. I'll put the link in the chat. I'd encourage everybody to chime in. And I just want to say good morning to my friend Dawn. We got a class act here in the live stream today. So it's great to have you here, and it's great to have everybody. And by the way, if you're live, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. And if you are watching later, I'd love to hear from you in the chat as well. So today, I want to talk about something, though, that's really exciting news that just came out between two of my favorite companies, and that is Salesforce and Slack. Yesterday at Dreamforce, Salesforce's annual meeting, which, by the way, is streaming online. If you get a chance to check that out, I highly recommend it. Yesterday at Dreamforce, Mark Benioff announced that they intend to acquire Slack. Now, I'm curious in the chat if you use Slack or not. I've been using Slack in my companies now for internal communications for the last probably 2 years. We use it internally really to replace email. If you're not familiar with Slack, what Slack does is allows you to create threaded conversations based on topics or channels. So you might have a channel for marketing in your company. You might have a channel for customer issues, might have a channel for employee questions. We have literally over a dozen channels in each company that I'm a part of. And what Slack does is it allows us to communicate throughout the day. And I can go in and I can, rather than things getting lost in endless email threads that get buried in inboxes, Slack lets me go and drive these conversations and channels. It integrates with all kinds of popular applications. So we have Slack integrated with HubSpot. We have it integrated with Teamwork for our project management. We have Slack integrated with our Google Docs and the rest of our Google apps, and probably a few other things. But what I really like, Slack has created a place where we can communicate internally as a company, and it really has streamlined things. Now, it's interesting to me that Salesforce purchased Slack. Salesforce has been in the marketplace of creating private social networks since I think about 2016 with their Chatter app, which is somewhat similar to Slack. It allowed for a private social network and conversations to happen inside a company using Salesforce. What I really like about this is it's done a couple things. First of all, everybody uses Slack. If you don't use Slack, I challenge you to start using it and experiment with the potential. And here's where I get excited. You go, Darrell, why are you so excited about this today? I wrote this morning on my blog that in something I'm very, very passionate about, and that is when it comes to revenue growth, there's two ways to drive revenue, right? We can get net new business. I'm going to pull that blog up here. We can get net new business, of course. And in sales and marketing, sales, we think about prospecting. Marketing, we think about lead generation, demand generation, and all of that. But if you actually look at your business and look at the revenue potential, some of the biggest sources of revenue potential are actually in your current client base. And if you think about yes, we want to grow net new business, but also we want to grow our revenue per client. This is the key number that I challenge every organization that I work with or talk to begin tracking. What is our revenue per client? Because that's a measurement of how well you do at cross-selling your current clients and adding more value. You know, as Mark Hunter says, you don't close a sale, you open a relationship. As Larry Levine would say, you know, what we're doing is we're beginning a conversation. And that conversation doesn't end, salespeople, the moment that they sign the paperwork. That conversation doesn't end, my friends in marketing, the moment that they become a lead and get handed off to the sales team. It actually just begins. And so here's what's really interesting. When it comes to cross-selling, I believe that all of us have a role to play, whether we're in sales or whether we're in marketing. We have a critical role to play in cross-selling more to our current clients. And cross-selling is really a conversation. You know, as salespeople, we would recommend a lot of times in the B2B space, things like a periodic business review, quarterly business review with your ideal clients. In marketing, we might recommend things like a client communication strategy, education strategy. We might recommend a customer loyalty program. There's all kinds of different things you can do, but all of those tactics around cross-selling more to our current clients are based on deepening the relationship and continuing the conversation. And here's what's really cool. Slack is a platform that enables you to continue the conversation. So what would it look like? What will it look like? Because I believe this is the near future, especially with Salesforce leading the way in acquiring Slack. What will it look like when now we have our current clients maybe not all of them, but especially our ideal clients. And we have them in Slack channels where we actually are communicating with them real time. We're adding value. We're answering questions. We're staying in touch. Is that reality? Well, given the fact that Slack has become nearly ubiquitous, there's your word of the day, it's everywhere. I think that's actually a huge potential reality. And with Salesforce and Slack tightly integrated and working together, what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to have a 360-degree view, that's Salesforce's words, of our client relationships. So now everybody, sales, service, operations, finance, everybody is able to see what's going on inside the client account. And we're able to continue that conversation, layer on some AI. And of course, in the Salesforce world, that's Einstein. Layer on artificial intelligence. And now what we're doing is we're having our infrastructure, in this case, Salesforce or their new product, Hyperforce, something else to take a look at, is actually looking at those customer conversations and analyzing them and making recommendations back, maybe giving signals through to the sales team, maybe advising the message that's going out to that particular individual inside the client base from your marketing efforts. So this is really exciting. And I think that Salesforce and Slack coming together is one example, a big example. They don't get much bigger than that in terms of two companies coming together. I believe it's a 27 billion, that's billion with a B, dollar deal in Salesforce and Slack. And it doesn't get much bigger than that in terms of two technology companies coming together. And what you see here is a company like Salesforce saying, we want to enable our clients to have conversations. And it's very interesting. If you get a chance, take a look at the keynote. This running right behind me, you can see Mark Benioff. I've been watching the Salesforce keynote from their Dreamforce event, which of course is streamed live this year online, since they're not there in person. And I think you'll really begin to get a picture for the way technology is advancing to be able to enable us to cross-sell more to our current clients. And to me, this is the vast new frontier for most organizations. When you look at your goals going into 2021, and I want to challenge you, join our web class, How to Set Growth Goals in an Uncertain Market. The link's in the chat. It's free. If you can't come live next Wednesday, no worries. Just sign up. We'll get you a recording, and I'd be happy to talk with you about it. But when you're setting your goals for next year as a company, I want to challenge you, not just don't start with that big number. I want to challenge you to go a level deeper and think about what drives our revenue. And I would say it's net new business and cross-sell. Those are the two areas where you set goals. In the webinar, I'll show you how we do that. And you can customize that to your company. So you can actually set goals that aren't based on a ruler, that aren't based on a trend, and that aren't based on throwing spaghetti against the wall. But the goals are going to be what I call aggressive but realistic goals. And they're aggressive because when we drive net new and cross-sell at the same time, we actually end up creating exponential revenue growth, which that's something to get excited about right there, especially if you want to have an impact. So, but here's where I'm going with this. If you look as a company and you're setting goals and you look at that cross-sell revenue, which you measure as revenue per client, and you realize our revenue per client is flat or declining, well, guess what? You need more customer intimacy. You need more communication with your clients. You need to look at that cross-sell side of your business and go, okay, once someone signs on the dotted line and becomes a client, what can we do to deepen that relationship, to add more value? And I have a sneaking suspicion that what we're going to see is we're going to see that part of that deepening of that relationship is instant messaging. Slack's one example. And And another example of that, obviously, is Facebook Messenger, especially in the B2C marketplace. Another great example of instant messaging is Drift or HubSpot or one of the different instant chat messages on your website. But you know what's really cool is a lot of those platforms like Drift, for example, or I believe Facebook Messenger as well, that can all dump into Slack. So you can have your people working in one environment, both communicating internally and externally in real time with your clients. And I believe this is the future. I had the opportunity a couple weeks back. In fact, let me just pull this up because it was really, really cool. I got to talk with Coca Sexton, and he is one of my favorite thought leaders in the social space. Early on, worked with LinkedIn. I believe Coca's worked with Slack as well. In fact, I'd love to get him on here talking about this Slack acquisition and what it means. But I talked to Coca on the Selling from the Heart podcast that I co-host with Larry Levine a couple weeks back. And I'll just put that here in the chat. But it was fascinating because what we were talking about was the future of social networking. And in the future of social networking, what Coca was saying was he believes that more and more we are going to begin to have social networks, private social networks with our clients and maybe prospects. So imagine, especially as obviously we've seen a little bit of pushback on the social platforms through this election season and all the things going on this year. Imagine this trend happening to where you have a private social network with your clients. Imagine, for example, let's say you're in the technology space and you have a Slack channel for CIOs, chief information officers, that includes all the CIOs in your core clients. And you're able to share information with them. They're able to share information with you, and it becomes a live conversation. And you go, well, Darrell, isn't that risky? Yeah, but hey, that's the world we live in right now. Wouldn't you rather be a part of that conversation rather than have it behind the scenes? And imagine if you could start to push content, push ideas, push things out to those CIOs in real time inside a community, what that could mean in terms of cross-selling. So actually challenge you to go take a listen to Coca Sexton. He had our whole conversation was on humanizing sales automation. But what I thought was really cool about that was that segment where we were talking about the growth in private social networks. And, we're seeing this all over the place. And I think that this whole thing with Slack and Salesforce is just a huge step in the direction of real-time interaction and communication and community as well with our clients and maybe prospects. So lot to experiment with here, lot to learn, but I'm telling you, the trend right now is towards communicating. And I don't know about you, but most of my communications on this device, I like to chat, I like to text, I like that as a consumer. In fact, research shows that's what consumers want as well. I know you may say, Darrell, we answered the phone on the second ring. Guess what? They don't want to call. Not all of them want to call. In fact, I would say the vast majority don't want to call. So let's leverage these platforms to drive growth. So as we wrap up today, though, I want to invite everybody to join me next Wednesday on our conversation about how to set revenue growth goals in an uncertain market. Once again, look for the link in the chat. It's also scrolling across the bottom, revenuegrowthengine.net. You can find the link at the top of the homepage or put /webclass-goals, and you can find that class. Love to see you there or send you a recording if it's helpful. I've got some exciting things coming up next week on the Revenue Growth Podcast. So stay tuned, and I challenge all of you to check out that keynote from Salesforce, because I think you're going to see a really good overview of the direction of where technology is going. And with that, let's wrap up today's conversation. And as always, let's get going.